Hey everyone, Jonathan and Molly here, and welcome back to Savoring the Magic, where we believe there is magic in the details.
That's right. So today we are back in Magic Kingdom because it is the height of spooky season.
Again, it's almost like it's intentional.
I know, but because it is the height of that, we have to only go to one place, which is the Haunted Mansion. So we are going to talk about its early concepts, the development of the ride, and then of course we're going to go visit those 999 happy haunts. So come along with us on this spooky excursion.
So, as we typically do, let's talk about the development of this beloved attraction before we go greet our favorite happy haunts.
While the Haunted Mansion gained significantly more traction after the World's Fair and also switched over to an Omnimover ride system after the fair, the concept for a haunted house had been thrown around since the very earliest days of planning for Disneyland. Harper Goff had sketched out a dilapidated manor house that could have been located off a dead-end spur from Main Street, USA. In fact, Harper even envisioned the crumbling mansion overlooking the town's church and cemetery.
This iteration wouldn't make it to the debut of Disneyland, but Imagineers like Ken Anderson continue to work on the house. Which tone to establish for this attraction was constantly up for debate, and through Ken Anderson's concept art, we can see that he settled for a slightly more unsettling approach.
Whenever Ken Anderson became involved, it was very much still conceived as a walk-through attraction, and his idea was to have Beauregard the butler lead you through a guided tour of the house. He would lead guests throughout the many rooms of this home and encounter some ghostly occupants along the way. He imagined not just a rundown mansion, but also a home with odd angles and a claustrophobic atmosphere. It also seems that during this time, it was determined that New Orleans Square would be a more appropriate home for this attraction.
One of the first concepts was based on a murderous sea captain, Captain Gore. The story ended up shifting, but the notion of a mysterious sailor continued, and if you watch the recent Haunted Mansion film, then you know Ken's sea captain concept lived on there as well.
There were plenty of concepts that didn't make it into the final iteration. The ride doesn't take you through the kitchen or through a room that has a man-eating octopus at the bottom of a well, but some of these concepts made their way into the ride we know and love today. The Raven is a recognizable image we can thank Ken Anderson for. It first appeared in his concept art. The idea of a guest staring into a mirror and seeing a ghostly reflection would be an idea adjusted to accommodate the hitchhiking ghost. This early idea of a graveyard jamboree found a lighthearted update in the end. This Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde inspired apothecary scene would find new life eventually in Phantom Manor in Disneyland Paris. And lastly, this early rendering of a decaying antebellum mansion with spooky graves and covered in overgrown moss would heavily influence Sam McKim's portrait of the ride and its final look in Disneyland.
Before the concepts were even finalized for Haunted Mansion, Walt already knew who he was tapping to lead the materializations. Imagineer Yale Gracey joined WED in the late 1950s after working as a layout artist in the animation department for nearly 20 years. He was an amateur magician and had a knack for mixing popular mechanics with the mastery of special effects.
Walt placed Yale Gracey and Imagineer Raleigh Crump together and tasked them with upgrading some of the dark rides in Fantasyland, as well as to begin working on tricks and concepts for this haunted house. The two men spent a whole year reading ghost books and going to movies wherever there was a ghost film to find inspiration. Their work stalled and shifted during the World's Fair, but they eventually returned to it.
In that time, the mansion had become elegant and spooky, a mandate from Walt because he didn't want a dilapidated structure within Disneyland. While Gracey and Crump were working on illusions, they were not the only Imagineers working on concepts for the attraction, which had been shifting away from a walkthrough and into an actual ride. Marc Davis and Claude Coates had been brought on board to pitch different concepts.
Raleigh Crump's concepts were slightly more frightening, but they were very creative. Imagineer Jack Fergus helped Crump make models for some of his designs. These were pitched to Walt along with drawings by Davis and Coates. During the 3-hour meeting, Crump's work was kind of delegated to a side table, but toward the end, Walt finally asked, what did Raleigh do? With that, he pitched an imaginative attraction akin to movies by Fellini. After a few minutes of pitching, Walt got up and left, and Raleigh just figured that his Museum of Weird would never come to be.
When he walked into work the next morning, he found Walt in the same clothes he was wearing from the day before. He told Raleigh in colorful terms that he had been unable to sleep after all the weird stuff Raleigh had shown him during his pitch. Walt suggested that Raleigh's Museum of Weird be a walkthrough portion as guests left the Haunted Mansion. They called Dick Irvine in to update him, and then Walt went to bed.
After Walt passed away, the Museum of Weird did get scrapped, mainly because no one really knew what to do with it. Some of Raleigh's concepts included a carnivorous plant and this unsettling candle man. He also envisioned banners containing palm reading symbols and Egyptian hieroglyphs hanging from a vaulted ceiling of a seance room. The Museum of Weird might not have come to fruition, but ideas like the seance room would sneak its way into the final version of the attraction.
After Walt's death, the attraction became a combination of audio animatronic figures in a semi-serious style of Marc Davis, Claude Coates' more eerie scenarios, and Yale Gracey's stunning illusions.
In fact, in Disneyland, the whole ride is actually a bit of an illusion. The ride-through portion of the attraction was housed not in the haunted house, but in a building on the far side of the Disneyland Railroad tracks. To get people to the boarding area outside the original park boundaries, they would need to be moved through a tunnel beneath the berm.
Thus was born Davis's elongating stretching room, with 4 expanding portraits designed by Davis to slowly reveal their dark narratives. The portraits were dark, but humorous, while the disembodied narration struck a scarier tone with a hint of a smirk. That duality was part of the reflection of the dynamic between Davis and Coates. Davis's drawings leaned toward the amusing, while Coates' creations were more intensely scary. From the start, this combination set the tone for the entire attraction. Scary, but with wit.
Meanwhile, Yo Gracie continued forward with trying to make these spooky illusions happen. He found inventive ways to make the haunt appear transparent, combining new technology with old techniques. The 19th century trick known as Pepper's Ghost was key to making this happen in the attraction, and produced transparent apparitions by using the mirror properties of an angled layer of clear glass. The grand showpiece for this illusion is, of course, the grand ballroom scene, viewed from above by guests through a 30-foot-high pane of glass. As they moved along the room's mezzanine, they peered into the room below, populated with dozens of ghosts that appeared and disappeared in variations of the Pepper's Ghost trick. The actual moving figures were above and below the ballroom scene and separated darkened chambers so that their translucent reflections appeared on the glass. But their dimensionality and placement gave the effect a certain realism.
One other great effect is, of course, Madame Leota. Yale Gracie had been unable to shake the imagery of a disembodied head with a mysterious voice. He was trying to figure out how to turn the woman he envisioned into a convincing effect for the long-planned haunted house, so he went to Blaine Gibson for help. If Gibson could sculpt the head, the projection wizards in the machine shop could figure out how to make it appear when she was speaking in real time and in 3 dimensions.
He wanted someone with an exotic look, high cheekbones, and dark hair, so Imagineer Leota Toombs was recruited from the model shop. They needed a raw cast of Leota's features, so her entire face would be covered by a thick white goop. Her hair was tied back tightly behind her head, and she had straws in her nostrils to allow her to breathe through the mask.
To bring the character of Madame Leota to life, however, Ub and Don Iwerks were needed. They were key for many of the projections for the Haunted Mansion. The original attraction had 44 projections, including those that gave life to Madame Leota in her crystal ball, and the quintet of singing busts in the graveyard scene.
However, the projection effect was definitely more complicated in the seance room, where a disembodied Leota Toombs would speak from inside a crystal ball. While Leota was the face of the character, her voice belonged to Eleanor Audley, best known as the voice of Maleficent in Disney's original Sleeping Beauty.
To film Leota, they had Toombs recite the lines during her lunch break with the black curtain behind her. She could only move her eyes and mouth. In the final effect, the film was projected onto the sculpt of her face.
The Madame Leota illusion is considered by many attraction designers to be the first public known use of projection mapping. That is the projection of moving images onto an object with a distinct shape rather than onto a flat screen.
Imagineer Ex Atencio would also contribute some concept art for the attraction, but perhaps his most notable contribution was the lyrics for the recurring theme song, Grim Grinning Ghosts. Buddy Baker composed the music, but X penned those iconic lyrics. The Haunted Mansion opened in Disneyland on August 9, 1969, and here in Magic Kingdom on October 1, 1971.
If you're wondering why we're going into so much detail about the development of Disneyland's version, it's not just because it was built first. Actually, the Haunted Mansion in Magic Kingdom and in Disneyland were pretty much built in tandem with one another. They created dual set pieces, decor, props, figures, and effects pretty much simultaneously. The construction for Magic Kingdom's Haunted Mansion began on June 30th, 1969, and was one of the few attractions at Magic Kingdom that was actually ready to go 6 months prior to opening.
Both rides share a similar soundtrack and the ghost host narration, but obviously there are some changes. The Magic Kingdom's Haunted Mansion would find its home in Liberty Square instead of New Orleans Square. It was based on 19th century Hudson River Dutch Gothic architecture, which allows for it to stylistically exist at the edges of the burgeoning harbor town boundaries of Liberty Square.
Both locations for the Haunted Mansion were incredibly popular in their debuts, and of course, this beloved attraction has had quite a few upgrades through the years. Its technology will be updated in both locations. Madame Leota's head now floats around the seance room instead of remaining stationary. In Magic Kingdom's version, we now have an interactive outdoor queue. Our changing portraits were moved into a hallway where their transformation is triggered by a strike of lightning. We have a labyrinth of stairways where ghost footprints can be spotted. And Disneyland's version now has a holiday overlay inspired by The Nightmare Before Christmas.
It should be noted that the Haunted Mansion is the only attraction found in different lands in each Disney park. In Disneyland, it's in New Orleans Square. Within Magic Kingdom, Liberty Square. In Tokyo Disneyland, it's housed in Fantasyland. In Hong Kong Disneyland, Mystic Manor is located in Mystic Point. And in Disneyland Paris, Phantom Manor is in Frontierland.
The attraction has now spawned 2 different feature films and also the TV special Muppets Haunted Mansion. Now, it should be noted that whenever we went to Disneyland last year, they actually had a whole exhibit about Haunted Mansion in the building for Great Moments Mr. Lincoln for the Muppet Haunted Mansion stuff. So that's actually how we were able to have photos of all the concept art in the video today.
So now that we've talked about the development, let's go ride this spooky attraction. We have arrived.
And now we are in the shade.
My favorite place to be.
Best part of the queue, right here.
It's open for visitation, except it's not.
But it will be later, don't worry.
That's right.
You're not any single file line. He said, all in, please think it all out of available in space. I love him. All in, all the available in space. You're not any single file line. Here, guys. 4. I'll have you hang tight. We'll get you on that next room. My next party, please stay behind the yellow line.
Terror with ghoulish delight. Your cadaverous pallor betrays an aura of foreboding, almost as though you sense a disquieting metamorphosis. Oh yes, and no flash pictures, please. We spirits are frightfully sensitive to bright lights. Our library is well stocked with priceless first editions. Only bookstores, of course. And marble busts of the greatest ghostwriters the literary world has ever known. They have all retired here to the Haunted Mansion. Actually, we have 999 happy haunts here. But there's room for 1,000. Any volunteers? If you should decide to join us, final arrangements may be made at the end of the tour.
This is Secret Magic coming to you from the dark.
Which IP does he belong? Like, who owns that IP? I don't even know.
Is that Universal?
Maybe. I like how he said it so casually, though. Do you mean, excuse me, foolish mortals. Just don't move. Don't get out of your car.
By night. Every room has wall-to-wall creeps and hot and cold running chills. Listen.
There be music from regions beyond. Wizards and witches, wherever you dwell, give us a hint by ringing a bell. Serpents and spiders, tail of a rat, call in the spirits wherever they're at. Rap on a tape. It's time to respond. Send us a message from somewhere.
The happy haunts have received your sympathetic vibrations and are beginning to materialize. They're assembling for a swing wing. You'll be expecting me. I'll see you all a little later. Just in time. There's a little matter I forgot to mention. Beware of hitchhiking ghosts. They have selected you to fill our quota, and they'll haunt you until you return.
Why do they always blow up my head? That's what I really want to know. because I was sitting on the other side last time, and that still happened.
Be sure to bring the certificate if you decide to
Yep. Not her voice in the seance scene, but it's her voice here.
Now I will raise the safety bar, and a ghost will follow you home.
So a lot of these graves are nods to Imagineers that worked on the ride, and honestly, there are a lot to be found. Some of them I'm not even sure who they belong to totally, but I can point out the ones that I do know. So we have this one for Grandpa Marc, going back to Marc Davis, one of the key contributors to the ride, as you now know. Right here close to the entrance is Brother Claude, referencing Claude Coates, the other half of the spooky duo that made this attraction happen. Over here on this wall, actually, we have several of these. Ken is in reference to Ken Anderson, of course. A lot of our early concept art. We have Brother Roland, that's for Raleigh Crump. And then also Uncle Blaine, and that's for Blaine Gibson, who was one of the key sculptors on the project. Back there in the back is a reference to Harriet. That's for Imagineer Harriet Burns. Good old Fred, I imagine that's Fred Yerker, who worked in the model shop because he was pivotal to so many of these classic attractions. Francis Xavier is for Exitentio. Grim Grinning Ghost, we're looking at you.
All right, so we have just completed our round through the afterlife.
That's right.
So what is your favorite parts of the ride?
Inside the ride, it's the ballroom scene, and that's been since I was little.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, whenever I was little, the Haunted Mansion terrified me, but it was Jonathan and our dad's, like, one of their favorite rides.
Yeah.
So we always had to ride it, but I always loved the dancers and the ballroom scene, and now I just appreciate all of it. Like, I love the guys that come out with the pistols from the portraits.
Yeah.
The old lady just, like, rocking in her chair, like, that just cracks me up. So that's my favorite scene in the ride. And then I also really love the queue. And I know it can be such a long queue and an annoying queue, but I love all the little Easter eggs now for the Imagineers on the graves. So, and of course, we pointed out some of that whenever we were going through.
100%.
But that is one of my favorite parts of the ride.
Yeah. The whole vibe I love. And I think I've just grown to love it more as the older I get.
Yeah.
I love the guy trying to get out of the casket. That's always just been funny to me. Constance is great.
Yeah. She is.
It's hard for me to pick a favorite, to be honest. I just love the whole thing.
Jonathan loves the whole ride.
Always a good time.
It is. And now that we're out, there is one Haunted Mansion treat.
That's true.
And we have to grab lunch anyway. And we were going to eat lunch at this place, and the treat is there. So win-win.
Handy.
That's right. Very handy. So we're headed there next.
So before we eat, let's go check out Memento Mori.
Yeah.
All of your Madame Leota merchandise.
That's right.
Although there is one I was thinking about getting rid of because it's pretty old.
To go with the new movie, really, over here.
Do I need this jacket? No. Do I want this jacket? Yes.
To wear it once a year for
To wear it,
Halloween.
yes. I was really thinking about it. I should have bought it today and worn it. It's not quite
Nope,
that
we did not plan well. Did not plan well.
I think that's my room.
Great Constance shirt there.
That's cute.
Yeah, I actually like the bag.
That's fun.
Of course it's fun.
I know, right? Hope you appreciate this.
Great artwork here. Spooky, spooky.
Jonathan does like the sweatshirt too.
Yeah, I do like that sweatshirt.
I like that it has the Haunted Mansion thing on the sleeve.
Yeah. Very nice.
We've also been all about sweatshirt lately, so.
True. The irony of living in Florida.
I know.
And they do have some merch from the actual film
Yes.
that you haven't seen. You should check out on Disney Plus.
We enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really quite liked it, to be honest.
And if you're a big fan of the ride, there's so many Easter eggs that make it worth watching.
100%.
And there's like a real story and stuff, and an emotional core to the film. This is a pretty cool chess set.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
Yeah, I snagged them for them. I knew they wanted.
All these will eventually be mine. Which I actually already have the Doom buggy, which I don't think that
It's
has
actually
yet.
not in here. It's the only one not in here, I think. But
Love the mummy scene. Gotta love these guys.
would you have the hitchhiking ghost
I have the
in
hitchhiking
the
ghost
Doom
in the
buggy?
big buggy. I love the Constance one. I
Yes.
know we pointed this out in previous videos,
Yeah,
but I do love it.
I know. You can have your very own Leota.
That's right.
Also,
If
one
they had
day.
children and her eyes opened, I'd love it even more.
Oh my gosh. Also, this is a great lawn decoration.
Yeah.
If we had a yard, I
Yes,
would
if
put
we
it in
had a
there.
yard, that'd
Yes.
be great. I do love the plates.
And like the coolest mug.
Yeah, the mug is cool. You have placemats there. And we already have a Haunted Mansion doormat, but if you don't have one, there you
It's an
go.
option.
If you need some,
These very cool ornaments that I think we've pointed out like every single time we go to an ornament
Yes.
shop. Because we don't have a problem. It's
no,
fine.
it's fine. You could have a Haunted Mansion tree, probably. It's fine.
All right, this is what we're looking at right here. This giant shake that we will never be able to finish because it has a huge donut on top of it. But look at the fun straw. Yay! And then, yeah, we also got lunch. So lobster rolls because we just got back from Boston and we're in mourning.
Probably won't compare, but you know,
No, probably not. But better than no lobster roll as it goes. So
it's true.
there's that.
One lobster roll better than 0 lobster rolls.
All right, taste test time for the Haunted Mansion shake. Happy Haunt shake, I think is what it was called. It's supposed to be blackberry. Words to the wise. That donut just slowly sinks. The longer it sits there, then you end up with milkshake all over your tray. So drink it fast. Blackberry is very nice, by the way. Jonathan's going to be a fan of this. And then, of course, if we're going to do this, we have to try the giant donut that comes on top. This is going to make a mess. The blackberry seeped into it. Doesn't hurt, I'll tell you.
All right, let's try the milkshake. Very good. Very sugary. Very good though. Yeah. If you're a blackberry fan, it's gonna go. All right, let's go in for the donut here. It's pretty good. It's like almost like a I don't know, like a Dunkin' like cake donut.
Yeah, with like the light glazing kind of on it.
Yeah.
But instead it actually is icing, but it
Yeah.
tastes like the glazing.
You know, if you need a little sugary pick-me-up,
Or a lot of sugar pick me up. This whole thing.
one you could choose, a haunted one.
So we hope you guys enjoyed exploring the development of the Haunted Mansion. Let us know, is it one of your favorite classic rides? And if so, what are some of your favorite scenes?
That's right, and thanks for coming along with us today. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. It really helps us out. We have videos coming out every Wednesday and Saturday. But until next time, keep savoring the magic.